Alex Merced from alexmerced.com. And I want to talk about libertarian universal healthcare. A lot of times people just assume that libertarians are just antithetical to the idea of universal healthcare. Why would we? Don't we want everyone to universally have healthcare? Sure. I would love that. But the thing is that there is a scarcity of resources. And it's not just about is someone paying for healthcare for everybody, but there are all sorts of different issues with the delivery of that healthcare, who's providing that healthcare, what healthcare is available. Are we developing new resources for providing that healthcare? So this is kind of why you want market forces, because they incentivize people to create new services, new products, but it also helps try to figure out those logistical issues as far as how you most efficiently deliver these things. But it doesn't mean you can't move in that sort of collective direction in a market, because basically in something like healthcare, there might be a lot of benefit to collective buying. So there's nothing stopping from people from organizing, creating sort of basically collectives to purchase healthcare. You can create sort of a healthcare union in the same way you create a labor union or any other kind of union. You just get a bunch of people together and say, hey, we're going to put our resources together. You start something like an LLC or an S Corp, some sort of legal entity, and you start making bulk purchases of healthcare goods and services and whatnot for the people who become members of your organization. And that's generally the way things should go, because that way you have a couple different choices of these sort of collectives that you can be part of. Different ones will be able to figure out different efficiencies to be able to provide you more for what you pay. Also, the fact that there are competing groups will allow them to have price competition to make sure that you're not paying too much for what you're getting. But over time, as the competition goes in, as it happens in any industry, you'll have fewer and fewer actors, because you're going to be a certain that just kind of figure it out and do it really well, and they're going to cover most people. But the things that are getting in the way are generally things like the rules that prevent you from buying healthcare across state lines, and rules that prevent you from being able to collectively organize and buy goods and services at state level, federal level, etc. But if you change those rules, this is essentially what Rand Paul's healthcare plan was kind of getting at. You could have that, and again, those people can join them. They can have these collectives can have policies as far as how they may want to charge less to people who have pre-existing conditions, or help people who have pre-existing conditions. There's all sorts of different ways you can organize this if you allow people to do so and encourage them to do so. And again, over time, that may become the single buyer. There may just be one of these collectives that just sort of wins out in a market because they figured out the most efficient way to deliver healthcare. They're able to do it at the best price, and figured out all these logistical issues. So you're creating incentives for a lot of these experiments, because it's not, again, just about one collective buying. It's also about how that collective is structured, the management of it, the organizational structure, the supply chain organization, all these things that are oftentimes figured out through competition, because those who can figure these things out the best are the ones who are going to survive the longest and be able to provide you the best value. And again, over time, you'll just have that, possibly that one player, that one sort of monopoly, natural monopoly in healthcare. And there you have your universal single payer healthcare without having to use the force of government, and it's going to be much more efficient and much better off because you had the market incentives to allow them to figure out the best way to provide it. My point is, you can make an argument for universal healthcare from a market perspective. You can make an argument for universal healthcare that doesn't require government to get involved, actually requires government to get less involved. So yes, a libertarian wants everyone insured. But again, at the end of the day, scarcity is a thing. And it's the market process that helps figure out all the processes to get the most resources for the most people. Is the market currently in the US working perfectly? Far from it. There's a lot of things wrong with it. This is why I highly recommend the book, The Primal Prescription, which really gets into the history of the healthcare system from the point of view of an economist, Robert Murphy, and the point of view of a medical doctor, Doug McGruff. And if you read this book, it really goes into the history of the healthcare system so you can understand why we're at where we're at, what kind of solutions exist now. But what I'm saying, things like the Rand Paul plan are great steps in that direction, and hopefully things that maybe the political establishment will take another look at sometime soon. But for those of you who think in terms of universal health care and single payer, you can get there through a market. If anything, you want to get there through a market, so that way you make sure when you get there, you got there the best way possible. Something to think about. My name is Alex Merced from alexmerced.com. Have a great day and enjoy.